welcome to the Elevate podcast series, which is in partnership with AdviseWise, the Equity Release Council, and Age Partnership. And today we're just going to look into the tools and support that are available to advisors who may want to educate themselves with later life lending. Tom, what does the industry provide advisors that are maybe wanting to get into this space?
There's loads of support out there for advisors in this space or looking to get into this space. Because it's a relatively small market compared to the wider mortgage market, it's pretty tight and everybody knows each other and wants to help each other, which is really nice. So if I talk about the Equity Release Council at the moment as an example, we've got loads of resources at the Equity Release Council to look through to educate yourself on later life lending and all those sorts of things. And then there are a few other things that we do. For example, we have our Find a Member directory, which is really handy. So we get about 6,000 hits a month from customers looking for a qualified equity release advisor in their area. They find your details. That's a benefit of being a council member. And on average, our advisors get 4 to 6 free leads a year from that. So that's always really, really handy. But equally, advisors can use that as well. So if you're educating yourself on later life lending, but you don't want to write the business yourself, you want to refer, then there's that option to go to the Find a Member directory. Other things we do, I've already mentioned, but our Safe Steps scheme, so recognising vulnerabilities and practical steps on how to navigate those to make sure customers get the right advice. We did a huge piece on consumer duty. We're doing Fair Value February this year as well. Tips on how to make sure that your fees and all those sorts of things are compliant, and that's really handy too. One of the biggest things I think though from the council is the way we work. So we admit folk from all over the market. So not just advisors, not just providers, but advisors, lenders, solicitors, everybody who works in that ecosystem. And that means that we all work really closely together to improve the market for customers and the people working within it, which is a nice place to be, and it's a nice thing to do. And we have forums of all these different members, and they talk about things that are a challenge in the market, obstacles, hurdles, and how do we overcome those. I'm conscious I'm waffling on, but I'll give you one example. My favourite example is from the legal forum. So all the specialist solicitors in this market get together and they talk about the challenges. One of the challenges that we recognised was that as an advisor, you can recommend certain solicitors because they specialise. They know the market, they know how to write that case, because in later life lending, equity release, every customer needs independent legal advice. So you could point them to a solicitor will be quicker and cheaper and know what they're doing. But we've all had customers, and I'm sure you have, John, who want to go to their family lawyer that they've used for the last 40 years on everything they do, which is fine. It's their choice, right? It's independent legal advice at the end of the day. But that solicitor might not be au fait with these products and what they need to do. So the legal forum all got together and they wrote a guide for non-specialist solicitors to use when writing an equity release case. So as an advisor, as a member of the council, if you have a customer like that, you can download that and pass that on to the solicitor, which makes that case run smoother and more efficient. And the reason I like that one is it's good for customers. It's not good for the people who wrote it. If anything, it makes it easier for someone else to write the business. But it was the right thing to do for the market and for the customer, and that's why I love that as an example. Externally out of the council, there are all sorts of different platforms out there. So as an example, AdviseWise are a really good resource, and they're learning modules in the background, but also do really good marketing support as well for advisors, which is really very handy in this space because not all advisors are experts in marketing. And I think it's free to sign up, Dan, if I'm right.
Yeah, absolutely.
To look at those sorts of things.
Tom's covered a bit of ground there, and not to overcomplicate or labour any of the points we've already discussed. I think the very first point for an advisor that's not engaged with this market is to reach out to the council. So hands up, that they are a membership body. You can sign up and pay a yearly fee to join that, and that's great, and I would encourage that. In my previous role, I was a BDM, and one of my back pocket tips for advisors, top tips or whatever it was back then, was to join the council, to have your own advisor page within the directory, because that was a way of engaging with customers and generating leads. Tom mentioned how many hits they get on their directory. That's great, but we completely overlook the resources and the tools and the calculators, the events, the education that you guys all do, and you're perhaps underselling yourself because it's the very first port of call. If you can sign up to the mailing lists, presumably for free, and then you get to know what events, local and digital events, are happening in your area. And it's by networking and educating yourself on what's happening, you will then find all that amazing support. So Tom already mentioned a company called Pure. They're one of the lenders, Pure Retirement. They offer a free advisor toolkit. So you can quite literally go to their sales team, go to their marketing team, say, I'm a new advisor. I want some literature, printed or digital, that's bespoke to my business to help me grow my business. They will literally package that, create that, pay for that, and deliver it to your door free of charge. And I think that's quite unique. That's pretty cool, right? To get a few thousand leaflets, to do a leaflet drop, to get some social media content. Advisors, we expect an awful lot from them. We expect them to be a marketing guru, a social media person, to record themselves, to go out and do B2B introductory meetings. You know, let's be honest, we don't all have that skill set. So to be able to lean on people that do have that skill set is a massive step forward. And then just to bring that to AdviseWise, you know, we're a later life sourcing tool, bread and butter, but we also have a mortgage club. We're also, and when I present us, we are a soft touch CRM system, perhaps underselling ourselves a little bit there. But there's a whole host of resources, e-learning, people behind the scenes that are able to pick up the phone, grab a coffee, discuss best practice. So my signpost to an advisor when they're starting out or wanting to engage the Equity Release Council, and then also total bias here, lender BDMs. I was a BDM, right? Think about people that have a circle of influence and they get to engage with a range of different advisors in the sector, both successful and unsuccessful. They will be a fountain of knowledge for you to work out how much do people charge? What's people's advice process look like? How do people market and generate customers? This just start, right? So get the first step and you'll create your own path.
Create yourself a bit of a support network, I suppose. Not to assume knowledge or anything. How would one sign up to the Equity Release Council?
Well, it's pretty simple. You go to our website, equityreleasecouncil.com, and register your interest there. We're a trade body, but we're also a standard setter. So the idea and the reason we exist originally is to hold this market to a higher standard. So it's something not to be taken lightly, but also it's a badge of honour when you're a member of the council. And it's something that you can show customers that, yes, I adhere to regulation from the FCA and so on, but also I hold myself to a higher standard and I adhere to the council's standards and rules and guidance. So you know you're getting the very best advice from us. And we've just sort of added a consumer side to that, the consumer charter. So if you get advice from an Equity Release Council member, you know it's going to be based on the 4 T's. So give me a second. Tailored, transparent, trusted, and thorough. That's the advice you're going to get from us. It's all up there somewhere. And when I was starting my career in this space, you were speaking to customers on the phone, 200-300 customers a day. That's how I started in this space. And 1 in 2 would ask if you were a council member. So to say yes, we were, and we are, is very handy indeed. But it's very easy, and even if you don't want to register, if you don't want to write business yourself at the moment, as Dan said, just pop in, register, and have a chat with us, because we're very happy to point you in the direction of different firms that may be beneficial for the things that you're looking for.
Yeah, and it comes back to like drip feeding that knowledge, isn't it? Slowly onboarding that knowledge to eventually start writing it yourself.
Yeah.
So we've touched on this in a previous podcast, but how do the equity release standards give a bit of reassurance, I guess?
Well, that's the idea, actually. So the Equity Release Council was formed in 1991 as SHIP. Do you remember SHIP, John?
Yes.
Safe Home Income Plans.
Yeah.
And it was started by lenders, actually, who got together, who recognised that these products were fantastic and they solved a load of issues. But there were some reputational problems in the past. It was missold a little bit before it was regulated. So they came together and set up 4 core product standards to protect customers, improve trust in this space. And we ran with that. So those 4 product standards are still there. So the no negative equity guarantee is probably the one we're most known for. And actually, even when you're speaking to advisors now who don't work in this space specifically, getting them to realise that customers will never leave a debt to their family is really handy. The right to move, so you're not tied down to the property for your life. You can port that plan if you want to. The right to repay early, subject to lending criteria as well, is really important. And then I think we've mentioned it previously, but in 2022 we came up with our 5th product standard, and that's the right to make penalty-free repayments. So having that flexibility, and again, that's another sort of misconception about this, is that you borrow the money, the interest rolls up in the background, you can't do anything about it. All products now enable you to make some form of payment to limit the interest or even bring the capital down if you wish. And then our 6th product standard came out in last year, and that's the right to repay early with no charge if you move into long-term care or move into a family member who's providing long-term care as well. So all of these are designed to promote trust in these products for customers. And again, going back to my early days in this market, speaking to 200-300 customers a day, 1 or 2 or 3 or all of those would come up in every conversation. I'm worried about losing my home. I'm worried about leaving a debt. I'm worried about that, I want to move closer to town in the future. I just don't want to move yet. All those sorts of things were in every conversation that I had. So pointing to the council standards to say, actually, this is in stone that can't happen is really very handy for those conversations. And something we're very proud of at the council for sure.
Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you in the next episode.